Everybody loves Southwest. In a world where many airlines nickel and dime their passengers, this quirky carrier has done things different. They offer a consistent and pleasant onboard experience, all without charging the kind of hidden fees that have permeated the airline business. It's really no wonder then that they've built such a loyal following. But do you know who doesn't love Southwest? It's investors. There was a time when Southwest was a money printing machine, but over the past 5 years, its profits have tanked. So what's going on here? Why is Southwest, this industry darling, struggling so much? And more importantly, is there anything they can do to turn things around? Let me explain. Now, as someone who travels a lot for my channel, I often have to rely on public Wi-Fi to get my job done. However, public networks can be risky, leaving your data vulnerable to hackers and cyber threats. That's why I trust NordVPN, today's sponsor. NordVPN is the go-to VPN for frequent travelers like myself, and that's for good reason. With its massive network of over 6,000 worldwide servers, NordVPN not only ensures my connection is secure, but also is fast and reliable. Whether I'm in an airport lounge or a remote hotel, NordVPN lets me upload videos and stay connected without interruption. On top of that, I also really appreciate Nord's threat protection feature. Threat protection goes beyond basic security. It actively blocks malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, even if you're not directly connected to a VPN server. It's essentially like having your own personal digital bodyguard. If you're planning to travel this holiday season, then it might be wise to give NordVPN a shot. And when you use my link in the description, you can get an additional 4 months free on a 2-year plan. Plus, you'll get a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks so much to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to it. Before we talk about why Southwest is struggling, we have to acknowledge their immense track record of success. Between 1974 and 2019, the airline turned a profit every single year. In an industry that's notorious for thin margins, this was a truly remarkable feat. How'd they do it? Well, they innovated. They pioneered strategies like a 30-minute turnaround time, a point-to-point network, and fleet commonality. If you'd like to learn more about Southwest's remarkable rise, then be sure to check out this deep dive I did a few years back. Of course, their 46-year profitability streak came to an end during COVID. This wasn't exactly a surprise. Every single airline struggled during the pandemic. But while other carriers have bounced back nicely, Southwest has not. Since 2020, the airline's profitability is down compared to both the competition and its own pre-pandemic levels. And investors are not happy. Its share price has fallen 50% over that time frame. Now, some of that problem is external. Southwest has succumbed to factors that are frankly outside their control. As an exclusive operator of the 737, it's been majorly impacted by Boeing's recent upheaval. Delays to the 737 MAX 7 have been particularly damaging. Southwest is counting on this plane, which is the smallest member of the MAX family, to become the backbone of its fleet. But with the jet now 6 years delayed, the airline's been forced to modify its fleet strategy. First, they've had to keep flying the 737-700. These aircraft are nearly 20 years old on average, and they're proving to be quite expensive to both operate and maintain. Second, they've had to acquire more 737 MAX 8s than they originally planned. The MAX 8 is the MAX 7's bigger brother, and it's already been in service for a few years. But while this jet has helped Southwest modernize, it's also proving to be a poor fit for its route strategy. Southwest operates a point-to-point model, directly connecting smaller cities rather than flowing traffic through major hubs, and they've had trouble filling the MAX 8 on these thinner routes. In fact, Southwest now has the lowest load factor amongst all major US carriers. Now, this whole situation is definitely a bummer for Southwest. Mistakes made by Boeing, a company that they have no control over, is clearly hurting their business. But the airline can't pin all the blame on external factors. It has some serious internal issues that are making the problems a lot worse. Most notably, the airlines failed to adapt to new market trends. One of the most consequential is their refusal to adopt premium seating. In the immediate aftermath of COVID, there were many who thought that premium travel was well and truly dead. In a world of Zoom, who really needed to travel for work anyway? Demand for premium cabins seemed poised to plummet, but oddly enough, the exact opposite thing has happened. Demand for business class is now stronger than ever, and in response, many airlines have wisely modernized and expanded their premium offerings to capitalize on this opportunity. Southwest was notably not one of those airlines. The airlines actually never offered premium seating, and this hasn't been a problem in the past. But it's clear that consumer preferences are changing, and rather than adapt, Southwest has sat idle. With each passing day, it's more and more clear that they've missed an opportunity here. To make matters worse, Southwest isn't even maximizing its profits in economy. Let's say that you want to snag a seat towards the front of the plane, or you're hoping to sit in the exit row. Well, airlines like United, Delta, and American will gladly let you book these seats in advance. For a fee, of course. But Southwest's long-standing open seating policy has made it impossible for the airline to implement a similar strategy. Then there's the elephant in the room: baggage. Southwest still lets every single passenger, regardless of fare type, check 2 bags for free. That is a very, very generous policy, especially when you consider that America's legacy carriers each brought in over $1 billion in baggage fees last year. Long story short, Southwest has failed to maximize its ancillary revenues, or money that's made outside the base ticket price. So the path forward seems pretty simple. It just needs to start charging for more. Go ahead and add a premium cabin. Ditch that open seating policy. Charge for those checked bags. These are all straightforward ways to squeeze more money out of your customers and return the airline to the green. The problem is that if Southwest goes all in on this approach, it'll fundamentally destroy the airline's identity, which is something that it holds dear. While the Southwest way of doing things might seem antiquated, it's a huge reason why they've been so successful. Customers are drawn to their quirky business model, and it's earned the airline an almost cult-like status. You'd be hard-pressed to find another airline that has such a loyal fan base. And that MO, the idea of doing things the Southwest way, has reportedly seeped deep into the company's internal culture. This puts Southwest in a really tough spot. It has to change if it wants to stay competitive, but the changes it has to make risk alienating both its customers and its employees. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know the best path forward. There are people far, far smarter than I who have no clue what to do. Heck, some people don't think there's a path forward at all. But of course, that isn't going to stop people from trying. Earlier this year, Elliott Investment Management bought a roughly 10% stake in the airline. Now, Elliott is a well-known activist investor, meaning they buy their way into companies that are underperforming and then use their influence to alter the company's trajectory, hopefully for the better. In the case of Southwest, Elliott has sought sweeping changes. They want management replaced, they want board members ousted, and most critically, they want the airline to finally make those fundamental changes to their business model. Now, just how big of an influence Elliott's going to have in the long term is yet to be seen, but their initial confrontation seems to have galvanized the carrier at least a bit. A few months back, Southwest finally enacted a few half measures, announcing it'll start assigning seats, add new extra legroom seats, and increase red-eye flights. Critically though, they are not changing their generous baggage policy, nor are they adding a proper business class. The hope is that these minor tweaks will strike a balance, allowing the airline to both make more money and preserve its identity. But many remain skeptical that this approach will be enough. Now, let's just pretend for a second that these changes work. Let's imagine that Southwest walks the tightrope, preserving its brand identity while also making a lot more money. Even if they manage to navigate this period, an even bigger challenge lays just over the horizon. Before long, Southwest is going to have to figure out what to do with the 797. Like I alluded to earlier, Southwest's point-to-point network is highly reliant on small aircraft, like the 737-700 and MAX 7. But the 737 family is reaching the end of the road. A pair of tragic crashes a few years back highlighted the limitations of this now 60-year-old platform, and it's abundantly clear that Boeing's next jet will need to replace it. But the 797 will also have to replace the 757, a slightly larger narrowbody that Boeing discontinued in 2004. The segment that the 757 occupies, the mid-market segment, has exploded in popularity, and right now, Boeing has no competitive offering in that space. Therefore, the 797 is going to have to pull a 2-for-1, replacing both the 737 and 757 with just one new aircraft family. And this isn't good news for Southwest. That's because the 797 will be slightly upsized compared to the planes that Southwest flies today. I think the most likely scenario is that the 797 will have variants that are as small as the 737-800 and as large as the 757-300. This would fill Boeing's conspicuous gap in the mid-market, but would also leave a hole at the bottom of their commercial lineup. Now, for Boeing itself, this isn't that big of a deal, since smaller variants usually don't sell as well as the bigger ones. But for Southwest, this could be catastrophic. If Boeing doesn't build a future small narrowbody, then the airline's gonna have to get creative. One option they have is just to buy the 797 anyway. But like we already discussed, bigger jets don't really jive with their point-to-point network. In taking the 797, Southwest will either have to shift to a hub-and-spoke model, or they'll just have to deal with mediocre load factors and the thinner margins that come with. An alternative approach that Southwest could take is buying the A220. Now, from a capacity standpoint, the A220-300 is an absolute perfect fit for Southwest, but actually bringing the plane into the fold would be pretty difficult. For one, the A220 is built by Airbus, an OEM that Southwest is completely unfamiliar with. They've only ever flown Boeing jets. All of Southwest's pilots would need to be retrained, and since the A220's cockpit architecture is nothing like a Boeing, this would be expensive and take a long time. To make matters worse, Southwest would also have to rebuild its entire maintenance infrastructure around the A220, which is sure to prove costly as well. At the end of the day, Southwest is just in a really tough spot. In the short term, it has to battle declining profitability, modify an antiquated business model, and fend off an activist investor. And if they somehow manage to survive this onslaught, they'll then have to navigate a tough fleet transformation. So while I still think it's unlikely that Southwest completely goes out of business, they are certainly at risk of losing their status as one of the industry's largest, most influential airlines. So what do you guys think? If you were Southwest management, what kind of steps would you try to turn things around? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Oh, and if you want to learn more about how Southwest put together that remarkable profitability streak, be sure to check out this video right here. Thank you so much to my patrons for helping to make this video possible. If you like what I do and want to help the channel grow, go ahead and check out this link right here. And as always, if you learned something new today, leave a like and subscribe to keep learning. And until I see you again, don't forget to look up.